Hello, everyone. My name is Shreya Kalyan, and I would like to welcome you to today's Triangular Talk session. So, before we get started, I would like to give everyone a brief introduction to Triangular Talks. So, Triangular Talks is a forum for students to interact with and hear directly from industry executives across various companies and organizations about how they use STEM concepts and problem solving skills in their day to day work lives. This will be a series of 1 hour online Zoom sessions consisting of three parts: an introduction, a presentation, and a Q&A session. These will revolve around one central idea: the triangular method of solving problems. This method begins with a problem. From that, one gets innovation, which one will finally use to solve the problem. To help students connect the dots between classes and real life, speakers will be asked what they do every day and how they apply their knowledge of STEM and problem solving. This will introduce students to different industries and motivate them to nurture their problem solving skills and not give up. So, I'm a teacher here at Agora Math Circle. I teach senior advance, and one of the most common questions I get is, why are we learning this, or when we'll ever use this? So, hopefully, this program will answer those questions. With that being said, I'm pleased to welcome Teresa Terry as our speaker today. Teresa is an experienced market research professional. She's led global and local US market research projects across a range of consumer, food, and healthcare products. Teresa has a Bachelor's of Science in Chemistry and an MBA degree. Keeping in line with the theme of Triangular Talk, today Teresa will share more about how market research helps inform consumer product innovation. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Teresa. Teresa, welcome.
Hi, thank you for that great introduction. I'm super excited to talk to you guys today. If you are comfortable, it would be great if you would turn your cameras on. I'd love this to be a little more interactive if possible, but I totally understand it's Saturday. So thank you for inviting me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about market research, and the example that I'm going to walk you through is how we used it to inform food innovation. And let's start by talking about breakfast. So how many people eat breakfast? You can either, all right. So what do you typically eat for breakfast? You can come off mute if you want to. What's your favorite breakfast?
Toast.
Toast, okay. Anybody else have any other favorites?
Muffin.
Muffin, okay. Anything else?
Something like cereal.
Oh, cereal. What type of cereal? Oh, wait, say it again.
Waffles.
Oh, that's a good one. Anybody else have others? Favorite cereal? Favorite breakfast, I'm sorry, favorite breakfast. And we had one cereal. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And you are actually part of market research. So just by answering those questions. So I'm going to actually take you through an introduction. I'll take you through the problem, and then we'll have the Q&A session as discussed. And so today we're going to talk about how we use market research to inform decisions around breakfast cereals, but these tools are ones that I use across lots of different categories: trash bags, soda, medicine is kind of what I'm currently working on. I worked for Intel. We did, this to understand like shopping. And so there are lots of different ways to use these tools, but today we're just going to focus on breakfast cereals. So what is market research? So I kind of think of it as the application of the...
I'm sorry, your screen?
You're not seeing the screen? I'm sorry. Perfect. Can you see it now? Okay. All right. Mario. So we're going to talk about breakfast cereal. So what is market research? Start there. I think of it as applying the scientific method to answering business questions. It was like this perfect mix of business and everything that I learned getting my chemistry degree. We use the customer voice to inform business decisions and answer business questions. And the customer is the consumer. It can be, if I'm selling it through a grocery store, it could be the retailer. If the final product is consumed by a young adult, then that's my target consumer, that's my customer. But it's always about understanding who the people who buy your products are, like what's important to them. We definitely leverage a range of statistical tools and techniques. So there's a lot of math involved. And really it's about taking that data set and creating a story based on it. And that story is used to inform your business decisions. We do quantitative research studies. And so if you think about surveys, if you've ever participated in a survey, those tend to have larger sample sizes. And that's typically the quant phase. And then we also do qualitative projects. And those are basically smaller. We have smaller numbers of people who participate, but those are just moderated discussions where I get to ask questions and I get to understand what's important to you and then the why it's important to you as well. And so those are two basic types of research that we do. So I'm going to start with a sample problem. And this is all kind of something that I made up based on my experiences working at different companies. And this is going to be focused on breakfast cereals. So the really big thing that we have to do is make sure that we kind of have a good understanding of what's the question, like what's going on? What's the context of the question, right?
Yeah, it's not ours.
Any questions? Okay, I'll keep going. All right, so I'm going to kind of set up a problem for us. So we ran into this when I first started out in market research. We had cereal consumption. Our target audience was young people between the ages of 6 and 12. And what we found is that they were not eating as much cereal. For some reason, over the years, their cereal consumption started to drop. And what we are talking about is, and so that's the overall category of cereals. And within cereals, there's a segment of products that are what we called better for you. So these were products that had to taste good, but also had to be nutritious. And so for that, we're target households, we're households with young people between the ages of 6 and 12. And the dynamic in that household was the 6 to 12-year-olds were the ones who were consuming the cereal, but the parents were the ones who were buying. And so we had to make a special effort to make sure that we delivered products that taste good, but were mom approved, if that helps. Okay. And so, and we called those better for you cereals. And so we had to make sure that we understood what moms wanted, but we also had to understand what the 6 to 12-year-olds wanted. So the problem was, so our company, we wanted to introduce, we're a breakfast cereal company, and we wanted to launch a product that kids loved, but was also mom approved in terms of the nutrition profile. So when you think about that, we had to really think about like, what are the behaviors that are critical for us to understand? So we wanted to motivate 6 to 12-year-olds to ask their parents to buy whatever this new or improved, great tasting and healthy cereal for them. We also needed to make sure that when the 6 to 12-year-olds requested this product, that the parents felt good about buying it. And that's kind of how we made sure that we could get something that kids loved and moms approved. And it could be dads as well. So when you think about market research, there are a bunch of different tools that we can use. And I talked about the broader framework of like quantitative, which is really survey-based, and then qualitative, which is really one-on-one interactions or moderated discussions where you can have richer discussions. And so I'll tell you a few of those tools. So one is in-depth marketing, in-depth interviews. And they can be one-on-one. So it could be me and a person here, and we could just talk about your breakfast habits. We could talk about why you like what you like, what you're eating more of, what you're eating less of. We could ask you to keep a diary of your breakfast habits and what you're eating every day and how you're feeling when you eat those. And so that's kind of an online breakfast diary. So we have all these tools. We do brainstorming sessions when we want to come up with new ideas. There are people that we can hire to help us like come up with new flavor profiles, to come up with maybe there's some ingredients that are really healthy, that kind of have a lot of buzz, and people are really interested in getting more of those in their diet. We do brainstorming sessions around all of that, like different forms. You know, should it be in a bowl? Should it be in a cup? Should it be something that you can eat on the go? And so there's a lot of work that goes into just creating new ideas and then evaluating them. I've done a lot of work where it seems odd now because we're in a pandemic, but I've actually done a lot of work where we actually go into people's homes and watch them have breakfast. And the goal is to just understand what that looks like, what's that dynamic, and then we get to ask a few questions as well about the whys. We do central location tests, and that's where we recruit people who meet our target needs, and we have them come to one location, and this can be across 20 or 30 cities in the country, because our products, typically we want them to be, they're national products, and we want to make sure that wherever you live, we've got your input and that these are products that will appeal to you. So we'll do central location tests where you come in, you try some cereal, you respond to a survey that's been prepared to help us understand your reactions to the different cereals that you've tried. We do in-home use tests, and that's basically where we send you a box or two of the product to try, because just because you like a product when you have it one time, that doesn't mean it's going to be something that you'd like to have multiple times. And so we want to make sure that we understand your initial reaction to the product, but we also want to understand long-term, is this something that you would want to eat over and over again? A big foundation of this is survey work. And so there's a lot of work to go into design, what are the right questions to ask? What's the right way to phrase the questions? What are the scales that we want to use to capture the data? So there are a lot of tools in this toolkit that I call market research. So one of the biggest things here is we use surveys to basically capture that experience. And we use it to generate a data set. And so if you think about, we have questions, kind of make sure that those questions can be used, capture the data is captured in ratings, and then that creates our data set, and that's where we do our analysis, and that's the data that we use to create our story to be able to answer all the business questions that we've designed this research to answer. And so I just wanted to kind of give you an example of a typical question for a project like this. And so one would be, how likely are you to ask your parents to buy this cereal for you? And so this would be a question that we would ask to the 6 to 12-year-olds after they've tried this product. And this is the scale. So we take their feedback and we turn it into data sets, and we can actually analyze that. So you'd answer 1 if you definitely would not ask, all the way to 5 if it's something that you would definitely ask to have purchased for you. And we have a similar question that I would ask of the key shopper in the house, whether that be mom or dad. And if the child asked for this, would you actually buy it? And there's a similar question that we would use to turn that response into a data set that we can analyze. And so this is just a simplified overview of a typical innovation process. So one of the things that we would do at the beginning of a project is really try to understand, what do we already know? So assess any data that we already have available, because we've done a lot of research in this area before. We know a lot about what 6 to 12-year-olds want in their breakfast. We know a lot about what nutrition profiles look like for parents. And so we definitely want to make sure that we take a look at like, it basically, this is like mining your existing data. You want to understand what you already know. And then this next piece is all about understanding what you don't know. What are those questions? Are there things that could have changed? Right. And so we want to make sure that we're uncovering any unmet needs or wants that exist for the mom or the dad who's the shopper. And the same thing for the 6 to 12-year-old who's we want to eat this cereal product. Is there, so think about things like, is there a missing flavor? Is there some new flavor that we're seeing in other categories that we could actually leverage for a breakfast cereal? Are there, healthy ingredients? I don't know, chia seeds. Maybe there's a way to incorporate chia seeds. They're high protein, fiber, lean source, very nutritious, add crunch and a nutty flavor. Like, could we do something with that? So once we kind of have our questions, then we would brainstorm, because this is all about new products or new flavors. And so we want to make sure that we are really thinking outside the box and like doing everything we can to brainstorm what kind of new flavors we could introduce. Could there be new textures? Could there be just ways to kind of do something new in this cereal category, where it's, and the golden rule here is we want something that 6 to 12-year-olds are going to love, but their parents are going to feel good about buying, right? So that's that really nice sweet spot between great tasting and nutritious or healthy. Okay, so we brainstorm, so we get lots of different ideas, and then we would identify the product that best, delivers against this: great tasting for kids, very nutritious from a parental perspective. And then we sort of narrow. So we go broad and then we narrow. And then we have to make sure that we understand like how big of a business opportunity is this, right? Because it costs a lot of money to launch a new cereal. And so we want to make sure that we understand how big of a business could this be? What portion of households are going to buy it? How many boxes do they think they're going to buy? And then how much can we charge for it? So you have to figure out the packaging, pretty much, everything to figure out like how big of a business this could be. And then you have to make a decision. Like, is this a good investment? Is it a profitable proposition? Are you going to sell more than it's going to cost you to make this product? And so all of these questions you have to kind of answer. And ultimately, we're looking at, we want to launch a new product. We go through the idea of brainstorming to broaden the ideas. We narrow to figure out like what are the top ideas that we think have a lot of potential based on what our target consumers are telling us. And then we need to make sure that we can make money on this, okay? And so I'm going to go into each one of these in a little more depth. So if we talk about step one, and I want to give you some examples just to kind of bring this to life a little bit around what that mining data and insights looks like. So, like for this one, I reviewed, current breakfast habits among my target. What are they eating more of? What are 6 to 12-year-olds eating less of for breakfast? Are there any flavor profiles, any new flavors, any new ingredients that are kind of standing out that they're actually consuming for breakfast that maybe they didn't before? I would make sure that I understand how are parents thinking about the nutrition hurdles for, like, how are they thinking about how they define nutrition for their kids, right? So is it sugar only? Is it, they want it to be high in fiber? Should it have natural ingredients? Could you leverage juices to deliver some of the flavors? So there are a lot of ways that parents can think about nutrition for their kids. And so we want to make sure that we understand what's important to them, because again, we want to have a cereal that tastes great, that parents approve of from a nutrition perspective. And that equals a win for us because that'll translate into a purchase. So we might also take a look at nutrition trends. And I sort of hit on this a little bit, but, are there other categories? Are there like snacks that are viewed as really healthy? Are there some trends that we can borrow from there? Are there some ingredients that are on the market that we could try to incorporate in our new cereal? So these are all things that we would kind of explore and take a look at and have a point of view around. We would look at other categories, snacks, maybe dinner, maybe candy. There could be lots of different ways to just see what else is going on in the world of eating that could provide us with some really good insights around new ideas for breakfast that would be tasty and would be nutritious. And then we would just outline all of those key questions that we want to answer and prioritize, because we can't answer all the questions, but we want to make sure that we're answering the ones that are critical to, making a decision in terms of like developing a new idea, validating it with consumers, and then making sure that we feel like it's a profitable proposition for our company. And please stop me if you have any questions. So if we go into step 2, one of the things that I would do is, do we have any foundational understanding that's missing? And so this is all about breakfast, right? So we would want to make sure that we understand, how is mom defining a healthy breakfast cereal? How is she defining healthy breakfast in general? Because there may be some nuggets there that could help inform the product that we want to deliver. We want to make sure that we understand, like, what is that right balance of healthy and nutritious and taste for kids, right? Because if nobody's going to eat it, but people think it's really healthy, we don't really have a business. We want to make sure that we understand, are there, what flavors is there a flavor that's missing? Are there new breakfast flavors that we should be thinking about? Maybe, 6 to 12-year-olds eat a lot of graham crackers, and maybe there's no graham flavor in our cereal. So maybe that's one of the flavors that we want to kind of look at. But we just want to make sure that we understand, like, are there gaps, and are there things that questions that will really help us figure out what our new cereal should look like. So then again, we want to just prioritize and then answer the key questions that are going to really inform this. The other thing that we might do is like understand the drivers and barriers of cereal consumption, right? So if I go into a house and I watch people eat breakfast and it's a school day and everybody's running and people are eating on the go, nobody's really sitting at the table. That says a lot to me about what type of breakfast products like I want to include in this study. Okay, all right. So if we go to step 4, this is really about we want to make sure that we're identifying appealing products. We got to make a full proposition out of this, right? It needs a name. We need prototypes, which are kind of sample products so that people can start to give us feedback. We need imagery on the front of the package. We have to decide what the package looks like. And so while I'm kind of talking about the product itself, everything else has to be done as well. We have to figure out how much we could charge for it. And so these are all questions that we would use market research to help us answer. So then once we have a broad idea of different ideas and we know what the kids want and we know what makes mom happy, we have to bundle that together and then figure out well, how much of this could we sell, right? And so one of the things that we would do is we need to know, we would recruit a sample of households, and our target consumer is kids 6 to 12. So we recruit those households across the country and we would conduct surveys. And so because this is something that would impact the kids as well as the moms or the dads, we would have surveys for both of them. And we would send them a concept and say, this is product A, it's going to be called blah, blah, blah. It's this flavor profile. Here's the nutrition information. Here's how much it's going to cost. Is this something that you would be interested in? And then we'd ask them a bunch of questions around why and why not. And for those people who are interested or even neutral, we would then mail them a couple boxes of cereal and let them try it. And sometimes we'll have say it's a graham cereal and a graham flavored cereal, and we have two different options for it. One has chia seeds and one has oatmeal to deliver the fiber. And so we would send them both of these, and half the sample would get the oatmeal version first, and the other half of the sample would get the chia seed version first. And we'd have them try each product for a week, complete a survey, and then try the second product, complete a survey, and then we'd use that information to understand which product is actually delivering best. And then we'd also have them share with us like how much they think they would buy it, right? So how much do you like it? How much would you buy it? What do you think about that nutrition profile? These are all things that we would need to know to figure out just how big a business this could be. Okay. And then the next step is our go, no go decision. And so this would be all around like, I've got this great product. I have a target audience that likes it. I've got a price point. I've got a name. I've got mom approval for the purchase. And then I need to know, is it a big, like, am I going to make money on it? So if I know that, households are going to buy 2 boxes a year at $3.99 a box, and 15% of households are going to buy this product, I can figure out how much I'm going to sell and how much that's going to be worth. But then I have to figure out how much is it going to cost me to make this product and package it and get it to the grocery stores and put it on their shelves, right? And so it has to actually sell enough to earn its spot on the shelf, because grocery stores, retailers, they don't want products that are just going to sit there and not sell anything. They have targets as well. So I need to make sure that this new product is going to meet my needs, meaning I'm going to sell enough of it to actually make a profit, and then also make a profit for the retailer, right? So for the grocery store. So we have to make sure that this is a big enough proposition that everybody kind of wins. And these are all the thoughts that kind of go through all the processes that are incorporated in launching a new cereal product. Okay, so once we decide that, we decide a go or no go decision. Okay, so then I wanted to just bring this to life a little bit in terms of how we use data. And this is all kind of made up data, it's mock, but I wanted to kind of just bring it to life a little bit more. So remember, we want a product that kids are gonna love and parents are going to feel good about buying because it's nutritious. And so we would, for one of these product tests, we might have a bunch of different prototypes, and we have the kids and the parents taste the product. And so here's we'd have them do rankings potentially. And so this is how we would take their experiences and turn it into data sets that we can analyze. And so we have on the left-hand side, this is what the kids are saying they would be most likely to request. So we have product A and product B, much more likely to request those than product C through F. And we do use statistics to kind of help understand like where there are statistically different data that show up. And so these are the two products, A and B are the ones that really rise to the top in terms of the kid request. And then for parents, the thing that we want to focus on for them is which ones would you be most likely or feel really good about buying for your children? And so this would be product A. So you look at this data set, you can see 39% of parents are saying they'd feel best about buying product B. So what we would do is look at this data and we'd say, okay, well, the kids like products A and B, right? But the parents approve of product B. So what we would move forward with is product B. And so this is a really simple example of that, of how we use this data. And I wanted to kind of just do another sample. And so we ask a lot of questions with like 5-point or 7-point scales. So this is a 5-point scale. So this is when we look at a product. And so this was product A, and then there's another product, we're going to call it product C. And we're going to say, okay, so the kids actually tried both of these products. They completed ratings. And so when we think about the ratings, they would have to be things that are meaningful, that would help us optimize the flavor profile or the texture of the product of the cereal. So we'd ask about overall flavor. We'd ask about flavor strength liking. We'd ask about sweetness. We'd ask about texture and how it feels in your mouth and does it look appealing, right? Because people, with food, it has to look appetizing as well. And so for these two products, we could just look at the data set based on the survey that the target customer completed. And we'd say, okay, so the green is the top two box. So these are people who like extremely, very much, and all the way to the bottom. So the gray is the third box. And then the red is the bottom two box. And so those are people who extremely dislike or very much dislike. Okay, and so here we would see for overall flavor, you can kind of see there's a lot of red across all the attributes. There's a lot of red for product C. So product C needs a lot of work. There's a lot of green, meaning these are things that people like for product A. So this just reinforces that product A has a lot going on for it, and there are only small areas that need to be optimized. Whereas if we decided to go forward with product C, we would have a lot of work to do in terms of, the flavor strength. There's a lot of dislike there. And these may or may not be hurdles that we could overcome, but luckily we have a product that actually is performing pretty well in terms of all the different important attributes. And so that's just another example of how we would use data to kind of inform a decision in market research. And so I'll just kind of tell you a little bit about what ultimately happened. So the cereal company that I worked for, we found that there were a lot of barriers, a lot of unmet convenience needs in the breakfast space among this target consumer. And so we actually launched a line of on-the-go better for you, and I'll call them better for you. And that's basically that sweet spot between taste that the kids love with nutrition that parents approve of. So we actually ended up launching a line of on-the-go products. So things that you could think about, things that you can eat in the car, things that you can munch on as you walk to the car, maybe something that you could eat when you get to school. And so that was one of the things that came out of this. And it's really expensive to launch new products. So we actually leveraged a cereal brand that we already had in our portfolio to do that. We also added a new flavor to an existing cereal brand. And actually I brought up the graham cracker, but there was a graham flavor that we leveraged in a product line that already existed, that was already established as good for you from a parental mom perspective and great tasting from a 6 to 12-year-old perspective. And then the other thing that we did is we launched seasonal products. So just think about something that would be on the shelf for 4 months a year, and the next year we'd have something new and different, but it was just a way to kind of bring news to the category. And these were all items that were targeted for kids 6 to 12 in terms of things that they were interested in, flavor profiles that really work for them. And then everything had to be something that parents would approve of in terms of the nutrition. So that's it. So I'll open it up for questions.
What was this? What was that cereal called?
Which one?
The one where you launched.
Yeah, so I'm not going to talk about the brands, but we did launch a boxed cereal that had graham flavor to it. And it was actually very successful. We were able to keep that on the market for 5 or 6 years before it was replaced with something else. But it was, I just kind of don't want to mention the brands just in case people have, perceptions about that. So.
Okay.
So about the nutrition facts. So then when you make the cereal, you also go and look at the nutrition facts to make sure that it goes and passes the US's health guidelines also.
Yeah, so we didn't really focus on the health guidelines that are provided, by the USDA. What we did do, because oftentimes parents want something different than that, right? So we would make sure that the product was actually viewed as nutritious by the households that we were targeting. So a big part of market research is like, you can't be everything to everybody. And so typically you want to try and focus on a target audience and then make sure that you're meeting their needs really well. And so what we did is we wanted to make sure that we knew exactly what parents in these households felt like nutrition should look like. Was it, and what we found was typically in these households, you had to have less than 10 grams of sugar per serving. Lower is better, but there was a cutoff where they just wouldn't even consider it. Fiber was something that they cared about. And so we'd want to make sure that we had at least X grams of fiber per serving. And so those were the kinds of things that we were looking at. So we were looking to understand what nutritious meant to the parents in these households, because in this household, the breakfast dynamic was that the product didn't get in the house unless the parent approved of it from a nutrition perspective, and the kids had to really enjoy it. So once it's in the household, it had to get eaten up. Does that help at all?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Teresa, there's one that's come through chat.
Oh, okay.
How has market research changed over time with new tools for data analysis?
That's a great question, because it's actually, it's changing every day. And so you'll hear a lot about artificial intelligence. And so there are market research tools that actually use AI to provide input. You can use AI to do a lot of the data analysis. We use AI to capture open ends and analyze them. And so an open end is if I give you a survey and the survey says, how much do you like this cereal? And you give it a 5 and you say, I like it a ton. And then there's an open end that says like, well, why do you like that? That open-end data can be analyzed using artificial intelligence. We can use artificial intelligence to, some of our interviews, we actually will capture feedback to that open end with you, it'll be audio. So we'll record it. We can do ad testing where you actually are watching the ad and you're on camera, and the technology can actually analyze what's going on with your face. So like, are you really paying attention? Are you leaning in? Are your eyes really engaged? What are you looking at? And so it's actually been, like all the sort of new developments from a technology perspective have really impacted what we can do with market research. And it just makes it better. So there's just a lot more things that we can track, a lot more things that we can understand, and just different ways to create data sets, right? So like if you're watching TV and you see a commercial, like I can analyze all of the expressions that are going across your face. I can look at what areas of the commercial you're looking at. So, there's a whole screen, maybe there's something very focused that you're looking at, and we can tell that, and we can use that to, make better commercials and make sure that, we do have commercials that are engaging and that we're leveraging where people are looking to include our branding, to increase the likelihood that you'll remember what the product is. So there's a lot that's going on, and it's actually pretty exciting. And so when I think about market research, I think about it as an opportunity to ask questions and to just make sure that we understand what people want, so then you can design products that actually meet those needs. And right now I work in pharmaceuticals. And so I support a therapeutic area, and a lot of the work that I do is targeted to patients, right? And so we want to make sure that if we have a medication, that patients know how to take it. We want to make sure that it's easy for them to take. We want to make sure that we understand if there are unmet needs that could actually help them be more adherent with their medication if it's a chronic disease, right? And so there are all these things that we can do to just bring the voice of the patient or the voice of the consumer into the room where we're making these business decisions, right? Because we don't want to just make decisions based on what we think as people, because I may not be the target audience for my product, right? I'm not 6 to 12. I may not know what a 6 to 12-year-old wants a cereal product to taste like. And so it's really important for me to go out and collect that information from that target consumer. Okay, there are other questions too. Does that help? Okay, how long does it take to make a product? Okay, let's see. You have different challenges. Okay, let's see what cereal called. So we talked about that one. Did you have any challenges? Wow, it was on the shelf. Yes, so products on the shelf, I think one of the things that we always had to make sure of is that we were priced competitively, because if you're not priced in a range that is acceptable to your target consumers, and there are other products, like if you go into the grocery store, there are always products on sale, right? And so we would have to make sure that we're doing enough promoting during the year. So maybe there's a couple times a year where we drop our price to kind of make sure that we're getting people to buy it. So like that was something that we always had to keep an eye on. And then that we're just selling enough that like we can keep a couple of, we call them facings, but like a couple of boxes, a couple of rows of product on the shelf so that so it's always there and people can actually buy it. So those were things that we kept an eye on. And then new products, is there another product is there a private label version of our product? That's always something that we worry about, right? If somebody comes and they develop a product and it's a private label product and it tastes maybe just as good or better than our product, then that's something that we'd have to address. Okay. You guys are asking really good questions. Okay. Let's see. How do you find people for the surveys? Oh, that's a great question. There's a whole industry that exists to help us source our target audience. So we create something that's called a screener. So when I do a project, I have to know, like, again, we can't be all things to all people. So when I get a project, we spend a lot of time thinking and talking about who is that target consumer? Who are we designing this for? Whose voice is it that we really need to hear? And in this case, it's the moms who are making the purchase or the dads, and also the kids. And there's a whole industry out there that like, I literally call a recruiter, give them my screener, and they make phone calls. They have databases of people who, like you guys could actually sign up. They exist all across the country and you can actually sign up. And when studies come, you can actually participate and you earn money for that, or you earn points, which you can then translate into something else that's meaningful to you. So I actually it's a fun way to kind of be able to like make a little extra money and provide feedback and see kind of what new stuff is being worked on. Okay, how long does it take to make a product? This is always a big question because the answer is always too long. Like I feel like that's what my partners always tell me. It just takes too long. So we try to figure out ways to do the research faster, get things. We try to make sure that we're developing the concept and the product, but it can take for a cereal product, it can take up to a year to develop a fully like a new product, because you really want to make sure that like you're developing how to talk about it, right? You're developing the pricing. You are working with folks who are like creating prototypes sometimes. So like sometimes the cereal samples, I'll call it a sample, but like they have a recipe, right? Because they're like, okay, we want this one to have fiber from oats. We want this one to have fiber from chia seeds. And they kind of take that, turn it into a recipe because it's like, this is our nutrition profile that we're trying to hit. So we have people like in kitchens who are developing products for us to actually go out and take to consumers. And then once we figure that out, we have to actually scale it up so that you can make large amounts of it, right? We can't make these kitchen batches for sale. And so there's a whole lot that kind of goes into it. And if it's something that you want to do advertising around, you have to do advertising before you can actually launch it. So it can take a while. And I think the goal is always to make that shorter. And we want to get things into market faster. And so there's always effort. So, maybe there are ways to condense the research that you're doing. So you're doing concept and product development at the same time, but we're always trying to take the time out of it. So that's a great question. The commercials. Okay, so advertising is a whole really interesting area because a lot of products have advertising behind them, right? And so a lot of, the goal is to have the advertising, talk about the product in a way that motivates people to either want to try it or buy it, consume it. And so the ads can actually be, there's different levels of effectiveness. So one element of market research is just advertising testing, right? Because there's some ads that work really well. Like, I'm sure you can think of ads that you like and like, oh, this ad is amazing, but you can't remember the name, right? And so that's a problem because when you go to the store, if you can't remember the name of the product, the likelihood of you, buying the wrong product or just not buying the product is a much lower or much higher. So that's something that we worry about, but that's a whole field. And so it's like, I wouldn't say that there's like one level of effectiveness for advertising, but some companies do great ads, some companies don't. And there's a lot of tracking and research that's is done to understand, is your ad effective? And when you think about advertising being effective, are you giving people a compelling reason to try it? Are you, is it saying for me, does it, present the product in a way that feels relevant and that is motivating to people to either want to try it or buy it? If you're doing we did hot cereal ads, and we did a lot to make sure that that bowl of cereal or that pancake looked amazing. We had a special thing that we did with pancakes, and it was, you wanted to make sure that you showed that they were bouncy. And then there was a fork pull, and you wanted the butter to be melted just right, and you had the syrup pour. And so there's a whole portion of the ad that was always the same, because that was, our research showed that really was the thing that was motivating to consumers to make them want to have a pancake. And so look at your commercials and you'll see sometimes if you think about hair, shampoo, sometimes there's a special, and all of that is informed by market research. And so you can see maybe a Pantene commercial, and the woman's hair is just a certain way and it looks specifically shiny and bouncy, right? Those are very specific tactics that are used, that imagery. There's a lot of research that goes into what does bouncy, perfect hair look like? What does a perfect fork pull for pancakes look like? And that's all incorporated into the advertising. So companies that, do a little bit more of that, I feel like they do ads that are very effective. And then the companies that are still learning, maybe their ads aren't as effective. But, and you can always make ads better. So it varies. Okay, so is there anything else that you worked on and made other than cereal? So yeah, so I've worked on hot cereal, cold cereal, trash bags, believe it or not, salad dressings, technology. So if you think about, I don't know how many people have tried Warby Parker, but I actually worked on this product that, if you think about going to buy glasses, right, you think of it as something you have to do in person. But we had technology where you could actually scan your face and then change the glasses on your face. So you could actually do it virtually. And so that's out in the market now. But I've worked on that. I've worked in pharmaceuticals. I've worked in I've done diabetes care market research with glucose meters. So just a broad range. So it's the same skill set, just different products and categories. Okay. Let's see. Is there anything else that would work? Can you be part of that industry? Okay, so how much? And even like if you think about things that you guys like, I know you had somebody come and talk about gaming last month, but you know, like gaming departments have market research too. Apple TV, I mean, like Apple has a market research department, right? Like, so there are all these places that you think if there's something that you buy, and especially if you see an like an ad for it, like typically those companies have market research departments. Okay, how much time? It takes too long. Okay, anything else? How do you find this? Oh yeah, so how did I find the specific problem? And so a lot of that is just data. Like when I worked in food, there's a company called National Eating Trends, and they literally have thousands of people who actually like record what they eat. And so we could look at that and see like, what are people eating more of? What are people eating less of? Who's our target consumer? Because we felt like we had a brand that was really targeted to kids, households with kids, 6 to 12, and really wanted to have something that was in this better for you segment. So there's just a lot of data that you can look at to see, oh, are there trends? My sales aren't as high as I'd like them to be, or I really need to deliver more growth than I'm currently delivering. And those are all things that kind of feed into, you know, is there something new that I can launch, and kind of tease that up. Math topics. So mean, top 2 box, like percentages, stat testing to make sure that I understand which numbers are different based on the sample size and the actual difference between the absolute difference in the numbers. So a lot of just statistics, I would say, get used a ton. We do regression analyses to make sure that we understand. So say we have a metric called overall liking. That's great, but then I kind of need to understand, like, what are the key drivers of overall liking? And so we can do regression analysis to understand, like, these factors are more important. So maybe it's sweetness, maybe it's crunch, maybe it's, you know, like maybe there are 4 or 5 things that really feed into that. And so I need to make sure that those are 4 or 5 metrics or diagnostics that I really understand and that I'm delivering against. So if people want, you know, to have a really strong flavor profile, if they want it to be, you know, sweet but not too sweet, like I need to make sure that I understand what those critical elements are. So when we're, you know, optimizing our products, that we know that that's where we want to focus on. So like if there's something that doesn't really impact it, like we don't want to spend time focusing on that. Okay. Okay, anything else? I think we covered most of the questions. Let me know, Matangi, if you feel like there's something that I've missed.
No, Teresa, I think you covered. There is another question that just came through. Can you please talk to us about how market?
Okay. Yeah. So when I first started and now, so I'd say when I first started, there was a lot less technology. And so like, and I kind of mentioned this, like, you know, like AI, and there's some other like new technology that we actually leverage. And so I think from that perspective, that's been a big deal. But I would also say like some of the fundamental stuff hasn't changed, right? Like being able to, you know, figure out like what's the business objective, who's your target consumer, what is it that you're trying to do? Like, what does success look like? You know, if I need to I want to launch a new product and I need it to be at least, you know, 20 million in sales, right? Like those basic things are the same. And then making sure that I'm going to those target consumers or customers and understanding what they need and want, that's the same. Sometimes like how we capture that data. So for instance, back in the day, we did a lot of in-person interviews. Now we're doing a lot of virtual interviews. Back in the day, we would go into people's homes. Now we're having people, technology is such that like we can have people, keep a diary of what's going on with breakfast and take pictures. And we can create online communities where they can actually, talk amongst themselves too and brainstorm. And so the technology has just allowed us to do things better and perhaps faster sometimes. But I feel like some of the fundamentals are the same. So thanks. That's a great question. One surprising fact, I feel like I learn things all the time. And it's always really interesting because like for the scientific method, like you will typically come up with hypotheses is like, here's my big question, right? Here are my hypotheses. And so I feel like I am surprised all the time because I'll come to the table and say, well, the hypothesis is that we think this and this are going to be successful. And it turns out that those two things aren't important at all. And it's something completely different. And so that's why we do market research, because we don't know sometimes what we don't know. And that's why it's really important to make sure that we are, really understanding the voice of the consumer or the voice of the customer or the voice of the patient. And so like, if you think about things like, I'd say one of the things that always is amazing to me is we'll do research with doctors and patients. And one of the things that will happen is like the doctor will feel like I hit the 3 most important things that this patient needs to know. And then when you talk to the patient didn't get any of that. They got something completely different. And so, there are like, you can identify opportunities to help like make that communication actually happen and make sure that, maybe if they're not getting it from the doctor, maybe there's a lead behind that we can develop as a company and make sure that the patient gets that as well. And so I just think there are surprises everywhere. And I'm always like, just amazed at how much we can learn when we just talk to people and listen to what they really need and want. And sometimes it's not like what they say, sometimes it's what they do. Right? Because I might say, I really love Burger King, but I never go. Right? And so like understanding like if Burger King is something that you like or In-N-Out Burger, but you're not going as frequently, like understanding what those barriers are and then trying to remove them can really be something that can help your business. And so this applies to any business that you would want to go into. Okay.
Thank you, Teresa. I think we are 3 minutes away from the top of the hour, or now 2 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah.
That was a very, very insightful talk. And as I was listening to you, I was just thinking about the numerous trips that I've made to Safeway or Target and looked at the cereal aisle, but I never thought, that there is so much thought and effort that goes into developing these products and putting them on the shelves. And you mentioned it's not just cereal, it's shampoos, it's pretty much every product that comes to the consumer, right? Which is mind-boggling and pretty intriguing, I have to say, which is very exciting. And thank you so much for walking us through the different steps. I think, kind of bringing it back to Triangular Talks and kind of the core of the intent and the objective of the speaker series. It's really, it was helpful to kind of hear you talk through the process and the importance of asking the right questions and the active listening. So thank you. And we're seeing all of the thank yous come through the chat. So I do want to share thank you from, on behalf of the audience for the time that you've taken to, be with us here today and for the time it took for you to put the presentation together as well. So it was very, very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you guys. It was really an honor to have you spend an hour of your Saturday with me. So thanks.
Wonderful. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you, Teresa, again.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
@TheCollege.org, or comment below and we'll reply back. Maybe. And if you want to see practice things or anything about us, you can visit our website, which is basically the end of the email but without the info and the end. So bye!